Shark Week, and surprise review for you. I am reviewing Jaws 2. I have previously reviewed the original Jaws from 1975, and I took it upon myself to watch for the first time the Jaws sequels. I don't know why I chose to do that. I've seen the original Jaws 6 or 7 times now, but this was my first time experiencing the sequels. Since it is Shark Week, this is going to be 1 or 2 reviews that I'm going to have for you for Shark Week, since it is a bit of a slower movie season. So I figured, hey, why not review a couple shark movies, 1 or 2, for Shark Week. So I went with Jaws 2. Jaws 2 was released in 1978. And obviously, Jaws from 1975, the Steven Spielberg classic, was a blockbuster. It defined the term blockbuster. It literally made so much money, it became the first movie to gross over $100 million. Bad movies were usually released in the summer at that point because everybody was out on the beach, but everybody had heard about Jaws, and it made Universal a lot of money, so it was inevitable that they were going to make a sequel. Jaws 2 came out in 1978 and stars Roy Scheider, not Richard Dreyfuss, not Robert Shaw. Has a couple others from the original that are in it as well, like Lorraine Gary as Ellen Brody. Roy Scheider once again stars as Chief Brody, and he has to investigate more shark attacks that are happening in the waters of Amity, and his wife has something going on with this corporate guy. I don't know. Jaws 2 is not directed by Steven Spielberg. It is directed by Jeannot Szwarc. I think that's how you say his name. I don't know. The only reason I know that name is because he directed some episodes of Smallville, which, I don't know if you can tell, I'm wearing a Smallville shirt. Oh, by the way, speaking of Smallville, this is like the most random plug ever, but speaking of Smallville, it is going to be the 20th anniversary of that show next year, so stay tuned next year for a lot of Smallville content. Speaking of Smallville, this guy directed some episodes of Smallville as well as some episodes of Supernatural. 2 shows that I like a lot. Smallville is just a bona fide classic, but when it came to those shows, Smallville in particular, he directed the worst episodes. Does that mean Jaws 2 is the worst Jaws movie? Absolutely not. Compared to the first one, it's not that good. Compared to Jaws 3, and especially Jaws the Revenge, where a shark wants revenge on the Brody family because they killed his other 3 buddies, Jaws 2 looks like a classic compared to those. Jaws 2 is okay. The thing with Jaws 2 is that it doesn't really answer the question as to whether or not the sequel was necessitated. Obviously, a sequel was coming because Jaws made a lot of money, but Jaws is a movie that should just stand on its own. It's the quintessential shark movie. No shark movie has topped it since. Jaws 2 tries to top it. The thing is, with Jaws 2, is that some of that suspense with the shark and all the tension is kind of sucked out of the movie. What Steven Spielberg did so well in the original Jaws was he was able to hide the shark. He wanted to go at least half the movie without showing the shark, and he was able to accomplish that. He was able to accomplish not being able to show the shark for most of the movie. A lot of it was because of the production trouble, so they had to improvise a lot, especially the scene with the raft in the first one where the raft is seen floating away. They had to improvise a lot. With the second movie, the director, Jeannot Szwarc, ultimately had to figure out whether or not it was a safer bet to show the shark, or whether or not showing the shark would leave the tension, the terror, and the suspense in the movie. Ultimately, he chose to show the shark, and he showed it quite early. Honestly, I'm kind of conflicted as to that whole ideology. For one thing, you don't want to copy exactly what Steven Spielberg did with the original movie, but at the same time, you want to be able to keep that sense of terror and suspense and the tension. You want to build it up a lot with this movie. I feel like, yes, I think they sort of made the right move by showing the shark early, but at the same time, it sucks any of that tension that the first movie had out of this movie. It's not like it comes out of the water super early. It's that we just see it kind of swimming underwater from like an overhead shot that's looking down into the water, and you just see the shark going by. I was like, okay, I mean, it's not like it's popping out of the water, so I think that that's kind of where I'm also in the middle on this decision. But even then, like, just leaving it up to your own imagination as to what this shark could look like, I think that just strikes more fear into the viewer itself, especially since the tagline for this movie is just when you thought it was safe to go back in the water. With a tagline like that, you gotta make something suspenseful and tension-filled, and I just feel like this movie, despite sort of agreeing with that decision, just didn't have enough of that. Jaws 2 also just feels like a complete rehash of the first one. Oh, look, there's a shark attack. Oh, whoop, we gotta get all the people out of the water. Oh, Chief Brody's gotta go and investigate, and Chief Brody's gotta go take down the shark. It's the same exact plot as the first one. They add in some other stuff that isn't all that necessary, like this whole subplot with Chief Brody's wife, Ellen Brody, and her like corporate boss, who's this big asshole guy. That was not needed at all in the movie. It was just, it was too time consuming. This movie could have been trimmed, I think, by 10 minutes if you just cut out that stupid dumb subplot. But I also think what hinders this movie too is that, yes, the character Quint in the first one died. But you didn't bring back Richard Dreyfuss. He probably read the script and was like, no thanks. I mean, Roy Scheider wasn't even supposed to come back. Roy Scheider had a contract with Universal, and he wanted to break that contract. And they told him, hey, you can break that contract as long as you make Jaws 2. And so he decided to make Jaws 2 to get out of that contract. But he had so many falling outs and arguments and, honestly, fights with the director. Like, they were literally fighting. It was made very public. Roy Scheider did not enjoy his time on Jaws 2, but I feel like not having somebody there with Chief Brody kind of just made the movie feel a little less interesting. There weren't as many good characters. There wasn't really anything that stuck out plot-wise or subplot-wise. At least in the first one, there was that whole idea that the people of Amity caught the shark and they thought that they had the shark. But Chief Brody wasn't so sure, so he brought in Hooper, and Hooper was like, no, you do not have the shark. There's another shark out there. And then all the residents and the politicians on Amity Island kept saying, no, we have the shark. You're crazy. Interesting movie also with great characters and great direction from Spielberg. And this is just Chief Brody just doing his own thing and he has to kill a shark again. It's like, yeah, kind of been there, done that. Not particularly all that interesting. They just don't give him anything interesting to do. And if there was a nitpick about the original Jaws, it's the fact that there was a shark attack and people are just kind of writing it off. But at the same time, I feel like people would not believe that. But however, it did happen in Jaws. When it comes to Jaws 2, and Chief Brody says we have another shark attack on our hands, and every citizen is just like, nah man, you're crazy, nah man, you're wrong, it can't happen again. What are the odds of it happening again? Nah, Chief Brody, you're dumb, you're fired, you're not chief anymore. These people are literally dumb in this movie. They are dumb. I get it. The odds of another shark attack happening are slim to none, but it happened. Why would Chief Brody lie about that? These people are so clueless. The only one that actually gains a sense of logic or a brain in this movie is the mayor. He was by far my least favorite character in the first one. In this one, he's actually on Brody's side. It's like, yeah, we got another shark, man. You gotta go take care of that shark. But I mean, everybody else in the movie is completely stupid or clueless. And then this was like one of the first movies to have like the horny teenagers. Just people, teenage dudes just checking out teenage girls and being like, oh hey, look at her ass, I'm gonna go get some. It's one of the first movies to do that. I believe it's one of the first movies to do that. The writing for the teenagers is not very strong. The acting for some of these teenagers is not very good either. The kid that plays Mike Brody, Chief Brody's son, is not very good either, and he wasn't in anything after this movie. Honestly, what saves Jaws 2 for me from being a complete and total train wreck is that it at least has some merit. It at least resembles the first movie, even though it feels exactly like the same movie, and it doesn't have as much tension, suspense. It doesn't have that feeling that it strikes terror or fear. into the hearts of the audience or into the faces of the audience like the first one did. It's definitely trying to replicate the success of the first one, but to a lesser degree. However, because it feels like the first one, and 3 and 4 are just completely fucking terrible, it's actually a competent movie. Does Jaws really need a sequel? No, but it got one. They got 3, to be honest with you, and I think they did the best that they could do in crafting a Jaws sequel in terms of what they wanted to happen for another shark attack. I mean, it's like I said, it's kind of the same movie, but at least it feels like it belongs with the first movie, unlike 3 and 4, which are complete messes. And Roy Scheider saves this movie too. Honestly, despite all of the public falling outs that he had with the director, and probably his dismay that he had to work with this director on this movie, he still gave it his all. I gotta give him that. And John Williams' score. Man, John Williams knows how to ratchet up the tension. Even though there's less tension and suspense in this movie, John Williams' score actually makes it feel like that there is somewhat of a resemblance of tension in this movie. And I just want to say this. We all know John Williams' scores. We all know that, like, Star Wars, Indiana Jones, Superman, Harry Potter, E.T., everything that is so iconic and imprinted in our brains. But I feel the score that goes underrated the most is Jaws. Jaws put him on the map. And I'm glad he came back for Jaws 2. Because at least we had a little bit of semblance of that tension and suspense that we didn't get in 3 or 4. So honestly, those 3 things saved the movie for me. And the movie actually does feel like it fits in with the first one, despite being almost a carbon copy of the first one, despite being full of less tension and suspense and not being directed by Spielberg, nor does it have Richard Dreyfuss in it. Jaws 2, I think, is fine. It's a completely watchable movie. It's got some dumb characters. There's definitely some dumb decisions. There's definitely some things where you just question and be like, how do they not believe Chief Brody? And it rides that line with me where there's that gray area as to whether or not they show the shark too much or if they show it too little. Again, it feels like the first one, but I gotta give it credit. I mean, Roy Scheider gives his all. John Williams boosts this movie a lot, and it at least feels like it fits in with the first movie. I'm going to give this a letter grade instead of a popcorn grade, because when I reviewed the first Jaws movie a few years ago, I gave it a letter grade. I'm going to give Jaws 2 a C+. Thanks for checking out my review of Jaws 2. Hope you guys enjoy it. I am planning on one more Shark Week review, and that is going to be in a movie roast form. Looking to have a lot of fun with that. I hope you guys have a lot of fun with my Jaws series. Probably next year I'll review 3. I'm not going to do it this year. Fuck. Wait a minute. I kind of have to talk about Jaws 3 now next year because I talked about 1 and 2. Ah, shit. Stay tuned very soon for more reviews, guys. I will leave my link for my website in the description below. My name is Alex Madden, and I'll see you at the movies somewhere.